Welcome to today's podcast. Our guest of today is Alex. He's a consultant at Inicio and the CEO of Softpower. Alex, why don't you tell a little bit more about yourself and what the companies are doing?
Hi, Joey. Yes, I actually was a fractional CTO of Inicio up until recently, where they've hired a full-time CTO. I still consult very much to Inicio. I founded my first company in 2006, which is actually still going. And then in 2008, we founded Softpower to produce the Formula One live timing app. We licensed the rights from Bernie Eccleston, and we delivered one of the first apps actually in the App Store. We were actually part of the iPad launch. Steve Jobs picked us, and that was all crazy times. So we did that till 2018. And now we do other jobs. We've always done other jobs anyway, the whole time. So we do consulting work alongside having a product. At the moment, I've been working on this product, Aventa. But as a serial entrepreneur, I also know the importance of keeping the money flowing through the business at all times. We make sure we balance and fund a lot of the R&D work with consulting work. Inicio came to me with a challenge about their AI system. What do Inicio do? They are an income and expenditure form FinTech. So they're focused on trying to get income and expenditure information to mainly debt brokers and debt recovery agencies, and also what they call them credit support bureaus and systems advice, all those agencies that help people with debt. And you have to fill in an income and expenditure form. That's the first part of the business. You build a web form. That sounds quite straightforward. Yeah. Well, the interesting spin they've got on it is that they have an AI agent, which enables people to fill in the form much more easily. It's quite a powerful tool when somebody who's not so familiar with all the financial terms can actually talk to the form and sort of say, well, I've got so many kids and they've got this much money coming from this relative. What box does that go in? And the form basically using AI can work out all the various places. And what I've found working on the project is deep implementations of AI. It starts very simple, and then you go much, much deeper, and you find you have to think about all these little quirks, and you can do an awful lot. But yes, it's a rabbit hole to fall down.
So it's kind of you find one thing, and once you dive deeper, there's so much stuff which is going on.
The initial implementation goes in quite fast in terms of you get a lot of instant feedback. It's very rewarding, to be honest, working with AI. You go, wow, it can answer all my questions and everything. And then you get into a little bit of detail, but we've got things like understand the customer's personal situation and things. And we have to be very cautious because it's regulated and all the rest of it. So we have to be able to spot various things in the conversations. And once you start getting into those and building a prompt that can't be escaped and all those kind of things, it becomes, quite a challenge. We've been working on it a little while. We're up to version 3 of the system, and it's a very interesting challenge to get it. It always, I guess, small products, but it moves on a curve towards right, never quite touching it, but you can get there quite quickly. And AI can definitely do things that traditional chatbots and traditional deterministic stuff can't do. So it's been interesting experimenting with it, finding its limits, but also working out how a whole pipeline works to actually deliver at scale. They're filling in potentially millions of forms are going to go through the system. So we need to work out actually the amount of tokens you can process a second and all the rest of it. Those things, they start kicking in quite quickly under load. Even with what you think is very simple, you've got all this prompt that has to go in, and that's a system prompt behind it means that when you try to do the sums of how much it's going to cost you, you find, okay, I think we're about 5,000 tokens of prompt at the moment, somewhere around there. So every time someone says hello, you've got 5,000 tokens to process. So some million token window disappears quite fast. So it's quite an interesting challenge, and there are ways or means around it, but you start investing a lot of time and effort into those kind of areas.
Of all this, like organizations and people you work with, like what are the people and organizations who are benefiting most?
So, well, both sides actually. So people in an indebted situation often are entitled to many benefits. So it discovers benefits for people, and actually this benefits both sides because often they don't realize what they're entitled to. So there's a process basically. Obviously, if you get yourself into a situation where somebody is asking you back to repay a loan because you've defaulted on and all the rest of it, they need to find out your personal situation. But in the process of finding out the personal situation, it will become apparent that you might be entitled to extra child benefit. You might be entitled to housing benefit. You might be entitled to this benefit, that benefit. There's all sorts of things. And our form will basically enable you to find those things as part of the discovery process.
Which actually makes the process go way smoother.
Indeed. And people actually realize it's worth doing, because a lot of people obviously get themselves into a situation where they just don't want to talk to people. And actually, by talking to an AI, which is answering the questions, they usually discover it's just a considerably better environment than they thought. They can all sorts of things they didn't know they could do and then were entitled to.
All right, then I have a question for you, and it might be a little bit of a difficult question to answer as AI is moving so fast, but it seems like you have a lot of experience in this world, it's growing on the go. And where do you see AI going in the next 2 to 3 years?
I'm definitely more of a realist around AI. So we've been delivering practical solutions for people. Interestingly, Inicio is not the only one I've been working on. So AI is already a very broad topic. One of the other customers we've got is doing image analysis, which is also considered AI. And image analysis topics, they're kind of a completely different type of AI in many regards. The processing and the generation of the model process is similar, but they tend to use different types of transformers, and it solves a different type of task. It's around recognition and being precise on stuff. The other project we've been working on is actually processing bookings for this product here, and we've been building an agentic AI pipeline for that. And I think the agentic AI pipelines are going to be the most common practical use of AI for the next few years, because there is so much work that can be done in those areas. We're reading in basically any booking, any itinerary. When that turns up, it has to be categorized. So that's one step. And then when it goes down that step of the categorization, we need to decipher based on that categorization. And all of these are separate prompts. Now, building that process is actually a winding one. AI doesn't necessarily solve the problem in any way more than a human would solve the problem. If you show a human this thing, and they'll go, yeah, that's a flight. But it doesn't answer the question, well, what is the flight and all the details about it? Some AI might give you all those details, but they might not give you the details that you need for the system. And one of the things AI can deal with is incomplete information quite well, which once again comes into the form filling stuff, but comes in all these agentic flows. When information is missing, you'll discover that you suddenly need to ask the user something. Like our classic one is the itinerary, wedding itinerary. So ceremony begins 10:30, speeches, tea party, 4:00. And nowhere on the page is the actual date when the thing's. So the AI can go, there's a date missing, and ask the user, what is the date of this? We've got all this stuff. I know what's happening this day, but I just don't know what day it is. And that's the challenge that AI is very well suited to dealing with, because it can deal with this, complex pattern recognition. And it works on a level much higher than anything else which has ever come before. What it can decipher from stuff is incredible. I mean, you can throw it HTML, things which are completely unreadable to humans, and will decipher it pretty much correctly. Also do a lot of stuff, and I think this will continue, testing new models. So model testing, and new models give new capabilities. Our experience certainly is bigger equals better. The first thing we did was, for building the environment, was actually to build a test suite, which had a bunch of things people might say to the system, so we could gauge the quality of the AI. And when we started, we were at sort of 50 or 60% success rate for the AI. Once we got the prompt right and we tweaked it and worked out all the things that it needed to respond sensibly with, we got the success rate up to about 90%. We then started trying some other models, and the small AI models managed about 60% again with the same prompt. But actually, some of the big models have now actually got up to 95% success rate. Not actually the models we're using, but that's something which will constantly be debated, which model you want to do. Because Inicio have a regulatory framework, we obviously have to be very cautious about which model we use and how we use it, and changing them requires actually a conversation. But the conversation will constantly be being had, and that which way you decide to go. Every month there is, almost every week actually, probably, there is a new model released, which is supposed to be better than all the others. If you're working with this stuff, you need to make sure you have a good test environment, which allows you to objectively work out whether for your use case, it's better. Because interestingly, for our use case, Llama 4 scored fractionally higher than most of the other ones. And Llama 4 has got terrible press at the moment. So we were a bit shocked by that Llama 4 Maverick for our uses actually looks quite promising. We aren't actually using it yet, but there's an argument to using it. It's pretty close. I mean, it's literally a fraction of a percent sort of thing. But there's the DeepSeek models, there's the Quen models. You have to try all of them, because the R1 turned out to be terrible for us, but it's brilliant for other people.
And also what you were saying, there's so many new models coming out, and especially with AI, you really have to pay a lot of attention to stay on top of the market, what's going on in the space. And if we're talking about Inicio, we can also, if we do it more broader, like your baby Softpower, what are some of the biggest challenges you face? What's really growing that?
We're playing on hard mode. So we're funding existing business. We aren't VC funded. Our challenge was obviously we decided to identify a new product space. We always had an idea we wanted to bring AI into the system. This is Softpower. Aventa was born 4 years ago now, from an F1 requirement. My business partner was the ex-team principal of Alpine, and before that, Aston Martin. We built this based on their requirement to get travelers around. And we built a system which basically does team logistics. How do you get 120 people to 24 races around the world? That was the use case. Now, everyone does it with Excel, and they do it with PDFs, issue 1, issue 2, issue 3, because it's not so much, they've got fancy travel management systems, but this is the entire race weekend, from an engineer leaving Heathrow Airport, flying out to Monza like this weekend, unpacking his bags, going to the hotel rather, getting on the right team bus, going to the track, doing the operations at the track, which will be specific to his particular job role, and then returning. And he might not be needed by the race day, for instance, but his colleague might pick up slack as well. So they've got all these people to schedule. That was the use case. And what does that mean? That means 5 ladies often booking travel coordinators and team coordinators, planning all those operations. So we wanted to streamline that, give everyone an app which could tell them exactly what they were doing. Interestingly, when you're working in this environment, you're working with travel agents, and they don't send you simple bookings. They will send you spreadsheet bookings and best prices and all that. So there's a booking process that the teams will go through, and to get the best prices, they will talk to all the various travel agents and all the rest of it. We aren't selling tickets. We're not interested in tickets. We're interested in the outcome of those negotiations. So we need to capture that information in whatever fashion they've got, and they may be negotiating via emails, they may be negotiating with spreadsheets, all those things. So we built a system which could contain all that. We released that in 2024, last year, beginning of 2024. We've been working with many teams since then to, add these various things, getting it working in their environment. We've always had the dream, and in fact, right in the early days, we were receiving emails with these bookings in to train an AI. But the challenge of implementing an AI in this environment is you need the system there before you can slot it in. So we had to design the system, and then we had to design the API calls. We had to design all of the infrastructure to be able to deliver. We've actually just implementing, as we speak, a GraphQL interface. So the AI, and we pass that GraphQL interface down into the system, etc. It's an interesting chicken and the egg situation I think many companies have, that they aren't ready for AI yet. They're going, I'm going to put AI in my company, but you've got to out what you've got on the detail level to interface. It's
very interesting because it's not just how AI is coming, let's implement in our business. No, you need to have the right systems in place so you can actually use it in the most efficient way as possible. That's what you're saying.
Indeed. Yeah. So this is what we've basically been working on delivering. On the wider business, the challenge is obviously all the usual ones: sales and marketing, how to keep the funding going, how to balance. Speed of market is always complicated. Somebody said to me, marketing, you shout, you stand in the corner, you shout, and then you go hoarse, and you then catch your breath and you shout again and you shout again, and you just about collapsed on the floor, and somebody wanders over and says, what were you saying? And that's what it feels like. You do all these marketing activities and they take a while. We have luckily got some motorsport connections, which are good for marketing, but from my perspective, I need to deliver the perfect product, as you can kind of feel, because we have some marketing we can do, which is not available to other people. But I have therefore to make sure that all the systems are able to receive the outcome of that marketing, make sure we can register all the users quickly enough, and make sure that the system is good enough so that people don't look at it and go, that's interesting, and just walk off. You can use our product for free. You download it from the App Store. You can use it to manage a family holiday. And that was basically the goal, to take that complex F1 requirement and bring it down to consumer facing, download from the App Store, use it for a family holiday to arrange. I've got 4 siblings that all have families of their own. If we go skiing or we do a trip together, we all will come from different locations, turn up at different times. If you put all that detail in Aventa, you can just see that. And then you can say, we've got to book a restaurant for 20 of us, which is the challenge, that big family problem. And that can all happen from the app, and that's great. And then it moves all the way up to the Fortune 500 doing an AGM on a desert island with 1,500 people turning up, flying in on jets and private jets and everything else. We can manage all that logistics, when the main meal is, when the speeches are held, when they do the workshops and the breakout rooms over a multi-day event. That's where the product
sounds pretty cool. What are the ways you guys are acquiring new customers at the moment?
We got some videos. One of them was a podcast like this with Otmar. You can find it on High Performance Podcast. You got 500,000 views, so that helped. More widely, we're doing shows to meet the actual customers that in the business. We're feeling our way around the industry. We are a bit of an odd red-headed stepchild at the moment. We don't necessarily fit the travel business. We don't necessarily fit the meeting business, but actually we're compatible with all of that kind of. We aren't an event company, but we are a product to do a thing. We're a very general purpose product. That is a challenge. I wish we had more direct competition in some ways, or at least a big player that I could say, hey, we're like those guys, but we decided to do something which basically is Excel and PDFs that everybody does. So we're claiming, well, we're up against Excel and PDFs, but people look a bit strangely at you with that. And then they realize, oh, yeah, actually, I can see why. But yeah, gradually we're going to move towards probably we will define ourselves in the market and start hanging out in the right shows and be more compatible with the messaging. So, but that's part of the fun of building a product. If it already existed, why would you be building it?
Also means like you're right, because if everyone is doing it, you're trying to like beat everyone. Okay, you're doing something which has already been done like 1,000 times before. So I completely resonate with that. And if you're talking, because you also have some experience with Inicio, right? What are some of the ways, do you feel like what are some of the ways they are like acquiring clients?
Yeah, so I mean, well, they've got a different path because they've got a very tightly defined market. It's literally regulated. The debt space is a regulated space. If you're selling as a fintech into a fintech world, you need to talk to the fintech market. Their board is largely people in finance. They're very well placed to be very well connected. I would say they are more that personal sale front than the Aventa business. So it's chalk and cheese in some ways. If you're trying to sell a product, we're generally applicable. We've got to touch as many people as we can across the world. So we're selling globally already. Inicio's working in a regulated market where you've got to deeply understand that market. And the technology side actually plays second fiddle, as is often the way. Actually, most businesses, the most important part of the business is understanding the market you're working in. I consider technology a tool to solve a business problem. And if you're building a product for a market, the technology can be really cool and all that, but if it doesn't understand the actual market, then you have a problem because you will not be able to sell to that market. Technology companies often sell to other technology companies, but that's the cop-out route to me. The interesting one is where you jump that boundary and get technology into a new market that previously hasn't been automated. FinTech is a good place for that, a good starting point. They are relatively tech savvy, the whole industry, but they have a lot of regulation. They have a lot of controls and thoughts which have to go in. I mean, just going through all the FSA compliance stuff, it's eye-opening as a software person, just all the rules which you are having to abide by, which a normal organization doesn't. But obviously, if you're dealing in the finance business, you need to understand that. In terms of trying to sell the event space, once again, these people are out in fields. You need to make sure that you can deliver a product that they can use in a field. It's got to make their life easy, mobile first. We found a lot of customers, we built a nice web portal, which they do use. They obviously go back to an office, but we need to be able to maintain it in the field. Understanding those requirements are really key for delivering a workable solution to an industry.
Would it be at Inicio or would it be at Softpower?
Inicio, well, I'm an advisor there. I wouldn't want to say what problems are the best ones for them to solve. The actual, from the AI perspective, actually is working really well. I'm quite comfortable with that. I suspect actually the answer for both of them, both companies, is really the market. Is how do you moving the market forward, because both of them are doing quite breakthrough products in their field, and it takes time to educate a market as to why they want to do something. I imagine in the early days of a spreadsheet or word processor, people sort of said, why do I need that tool? I've got a pen and paper. It looks like a good idea, but it's quite a lot of money and it's quite big sitting on my desk. And then a few people start using it, and then suddenly all those writers out there with typewriters threw them away. But it takes that. It wasn't immediately. And we're working on an early part of a market where, I mean, Inicio, the first ever FCA regulated I&E provider. It's pretty breakthrough stuff. That alone is interesting to me. That's what drew me to the idea. We're doing something, really novel. And the same thing with what I'm doing with Aventa. It's like we're trying to break down something which has been done for tens of years, if not hundreds of years, with parchment, which is how do you get a bunch of people to do stuff, do a thing. And we're doing it in a new way. And we're allowing people to see things. The whole concept is collaboration and sharing it with a team. So all of them are offering things which have not been done before.
And if we're talking about goals, where do you want to move towards? Like at least how much information you know about Inicio and also about Softpower?
Well, the answer is pinky in the brain. Same thing I do every night. try to take over the world. We just got to keep on driving towards the goal. I'll know when I've reached it. I have a kind of roadmap of what we're going, as every company should have at least some visibility of what their pie in the sky dreams are. But I also know that those aren't that important, quite honestly, for a young business. For a young business, the most important thing, and the reason why people talk so much about pivoting and all that stuff, is because actually those dreams are less important than market reality. You will follow the money always. And when the market drives you in one direction and you want to go in the other direction, don't forget the other direction, but don't pull too hard against it.
But then you're going again.
If the idea to
Yeah.
do Yeah, you can build. I've definitely experienced that firsthand with Aventa recently, that there are certain areas, obviously, because there are easy areas to cover in the eventing business where there are already existing products. And we could do more of those features. But so I do some of them, but I'm trying to keep the vision of team logistics still, because if you just build a travel company or you just build Expedia again, it's like it's been done. It's not very interesting. It's not where I want to be. Well, I wouldn't say no, but yeah. I don't feel that's the path I'm trying to follow.
I think with anything, right, you have to feel the path which you feel like the most meaning in. Because once you feel like meaning in what you're doing, everything just goes way easier, right? It's not easy, but still like there's this force behind it because you're so passionate about it, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got to drive it. I have a lot of fun because obviously I did the F1 timing app, and that was another breakthrough product. And we didn't know it would work. We were trying to sell a premium part of the sport, which was access to the live timing. Every session broadcast to the phone. It was a second screen experience. So one of the first ever second screen experiences, really, which was commercialized. And delivering that was just really exciting to do. Lots of people sort of said, why aren't you delivering like scoring information, the simple stuff, the news and the scoring information? I was absolutely hell-bent on getting as much data as we could. I wanted to give the fan that team view, the live insights where you can see this driver's dropping behind. You could see where all the cars were on the track. You could see who was going to be ahead in a few laps, all of those things. And we were pretty successful with that. And actually then bring some fan collaborations. In 2012, we added Twitter support, which actually was dropped, but that was quite an interesting area where effectively we used Twitter in an interesting way, which it was still Twitter, by the way, at that point, but I'm sure everyone still knows that. And it kept a list of like basically Twitter actually has lists in it. We had a list of F1 drivers, so you could follow all the drivers' tweets only during the race. And this is actually quite a nice way of dealing with Twitter, but sadly, people don't tend to use that. The feature's still there, but it's very hidden. People just have this noisy feed of everything. It could have been so different, I feel, if the list stuff had taken off. Maybe they will rediscover it. In some ways, I think Reddit has rediscovered that, like focused. I want to listen to this stuff at the moment. I'll go into this group and talk about that. But yeah, it's always fun doing something first time. And that's what gets me up. Yeah. I realized I got much more excited doing that than any of the other contracts and jobs.
Amazing. I also want to ask you this question because it seems you're talking from a lot of knowledge. And what is some advice you would give to people like we're also in the industry or maybe a CEO and they just have less experience than you in the market? And with all your experience and with all the lessons you've learned, like what would you say to them?
I think you have to follow your heart with what you want to do. I always think that's important in life anyway, but you also have to be somewhat realistic. I've always been a realist. I started doing client work as my business. I only built a product when we'd done enough client work that I felt comfortable that we might do it. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Make sure you watch your cash flow, all those good things that everyone always tells you to do. And also look for the customers. You need to always be objective. I meet lots of people that have crazy ideas, which might just work, but the crazier the idea, the harder it is to execute. And the further it is from anything that that's been done before, the harder it is. If you can see that there is something which clearly already exists, that's great. We do have some prior art in the world of event tasks. Those conditions and the route to market has always been like core. The reason I did the F1 app was because I knew we were going with F1. We had a cheat mode built in. We had the marketing platform of Formula One to allow the product to thrive in the marketplace. Now with Aventa, we do have a lot of motorsport connections who are doing this, and they're doing it at a very complicated level. And in the Inicio situation, similar story, they're financial people. They are set up to be able to talk the right language, and they therefore have a route to market. They know who to talk to. They have people in all the various areas, and they know on the opposite side of the table, the feelings of the person that's likely to use their product. likely to pay for their product, which is very important. Always work out who's going to pay for your product.
Yeah.
We focus, the family holiday is a nice idea, but we know the family is not the one that's going to be paying for us. They're the pie in the sky stuff for me. But delivering on a large team, those people I can see, those people I can understand their challenges.
Amazing. And if people are watching this podcast right now and they're like, wow, this guy is very interesting and the companies he's doing with Inicio and also like Softpower, it sounds really interesting. Like, how can they find you and how can they learn more about you and your companies?
Just look us up on the website. We've got a website. Softpower is spelt funny. softpauer.com. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. Feel free. I guess you might put my LinkedIn. I don't mind if you put my code up. I haven't given it to you, but I'm on LinkedIn. So always very happy to chat. And as you can hear, we like interesting products. I left out an entire other side of the business, which deals with Internet of Things, which was a previous thing lots of people were talking about and still are actually talking about, but it's a slightly different marketplace. So we've always built large scale solutions for people and small scales. We're happy to go down to a website. So, but if you have an interesting problem, it goes better because it gets the juices flowing. I realize that's the secret of a lot of F1 teams is that they are driven towards this goal. They're always competing. And if you can produce that in a business, it will bring the best out of people. And you might just be able to do the impossible.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Alex, for sharing all your value. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I'll make sure to put all the links in the description down below. So make sure to check it out so you can find more about Alex and Softpower. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Alex, and see you in the next episode.
Thank you, Joey.